Oh, boys, I don't know if we could be in trouble. We got an official microphone for Betsy back there. So now, when she chews me out, it's going to be more than sign language and whispering. You're going to be able to hear it. I hope she has something nice to say on this episode of Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast. Say, you guys might notice my little plaque back here from YouTube for getting 100,000 subscribers on my regular Ron Spomer Outdoors channel. That was some time ago, but this is Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast channel, on which we have, what, honey?
92,000.
92,000 subscribers. If we can get just 8,000 more, we'll get another plaque and we'll be so happy. How many people have two of these silver plaques? I think their retail value is something around $5. So, hey, really appreciate you guys. Whether you become a subscriber or not, we sure appreciate you listening. Hey, I have just remembered shell shock because I was recently in Sioux Falls, South Dakota at Silencer Central learning about their silencers, and we were on the range shooting a bunch of them. And even though they will knock about 30, somewhere between 28 and 32, depending on which one and how big it is and all the rest of it, they will knock about 30 decibels of sound off the top of a muzzle blast. And most center fire rifles are jumping out there at about 150 to as much as 175 decibels of sound energy. And that is huge. That is a lot of noise that can damage your hearing. And trust me, it has damaged mine. But if you knock 30 decibels off, that helps a lot. But if you have a 160 decibel blast and you knock it down to 130, there's still enough energy in that noise level to damage your hearing. So I like to have these shell shocks even when I'm shooting on the bench with a can. Now, when I'm hunting, the value of a suppressor is that if I have a sudden shooting opportunity and don't have time to protect my ears with something, I can shoot and not do much damage, if any. But boy, you got the option, you're doing a lot of shooting, get those muffs over the top. And when I'm on the bench, I even put in the little foamy plugs and then these. And that prevents any of that ringing that persists for a day or two to tell me that I've damaged some more of my essential hair cells. And I'm probably not going to understand the grandkids when they start yelling at me. Hey guys, we've got some really great questions today from our patrons as well as regular viewers of our channels. And we're going to start off talking about combination guns of all things. We're also going to discuss a few more of your favorite rifle batteries. Which 3 rifles or cartridges would you choose for your battery? But we're also going to compile a list from all of you that's roughly giving us our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 best, most popular deer cartridges in America, at least according to you guys. So let's dive right in it by going to Austria, where we again hear from our patron Wolfgang. This is the gentleman who's talking about something fairly common over in Europe, combination rifle shotguns, or even combination rifles. You could have a center fire and a rim fire, for instance. So let's just see what Wolfgang has to say. Hey, using combination guns, it's a European view. Ron, when watching your episode 380, it seems like hunters in the USA are carrying at least 3 rifles on every hunting trip. A 30-06 or 308 for bigger game, a 22 Winchester Magnum or a 223 for smaller game, and a 16 to 20 gauge shotgun for birds and squirrels. Well, why not use a combination or an over-under rifle? You can even get these rifles with 3 calibers. There is not more versatility possible than these combination guns. You can even dismantle one into 3 pieces and carry it in your backpack. Popular combinations have been the 7x57 rimmed with a 5.6x50 rimmed for many years, and older hunters like me are still using them. Today, you can get more modern combinations such as a 30-06 with a 22 Creedmoor barrel or a 270 over a 223 or whatever you want, even with a silencer. One of the advantages as well, you don't have to get different scopes or zero in again when switching scopes from one rifle to another. So as well, you can save some money, possibly as long as you don't buy one custom rifle from Furlock, the world's capital of combination guns. Best regards from Austria. Yeah, Wolfgang, you're absolutely right. And I have known this for a long, long time. I had a dear friend who was actually my high school English teacher who had an over-under, first one I ever saw. And it was a shotgun barrel with the rifle barrel over the top, if I remember right. At any rate, that planted the seed for me. And when I started hunting elk in the mountains, the wilderness of Idaho here, I soon found myself having opportunities to shoot, call it meat for camp, grouse mostly, sometimes rabbits. And you'd be out there with your big center fire for elk, and here would be a blue grouse or a rough grouse or a spruce grouse right in front of you, and you weren't going to shoot him with a 300 Magnum, although I did sometimes shoot him in the head with that. But it makes a big loud noise and all, and a little 22 barrel would have been great. So sometimes we will use a handgun. I used to carry a little 22, really lightweight autoloader from Smith & Wesson that worked pretty well. But then you get tired of carrying that around, and I don't know, but we do have options, and an over-under like that certainly makes sense, especially if you are not necessarily hunting for the biggest, baddest mountain monster out there, and you just meat hunting more or less, and you aren't so worried about spooking the neighborhood with a shot. So if you're walking along looking for elk and a ruffed grouse or a blue grouse offers a shot opportunity and you want some camp meat, you use your shotgun barrel or your 22, because in the mountain states you can generally legally head shoot grouse with a 22 rimfire, and it's hardly any noise involved with that. So yeah, that is a really great option. Not all that popular over here, and I think I know the reason why. If most hunters are like me, when we're thinking of a perfect rifle, we're thinking of a perfect rifle, not a compromised perfect rifle. So we want a bold action that we have worked with and tuned to be shooting to perfection with one particular load, and it's just the right balance, not too heavy, and has multiple opportunities for subsequent shots. A magazine, in other words, with 3 to 5 rounds down in case you muff up your first shot. With a combination gun, you've essentially got a single shot, which, these days I'm kind of a single shot guy, getting into it more and more. And if you take your time, there's nothing wrong with using a single shot. The first shot is really what counts. So I think it's worth considering. So any of you out there who are, a little more pragmatic about your hunting and you're just out to enjoy the woods and pick up some meat, whether it's flying feathers or a hopping bunny or a big deer or elk, a combination gun like Wolfgang recommends is a great option. All right. Thanks for that, Wolfgang. Now, Justin, another patron, writes in, says, I've got a two-parter for you. I recently got a 7mm 08 that's shooting 1/4 to 1/3 minute groups with my 150 ELDX bullets. Whew. This has rendered my 308 almost useless. I am looking at rebarreling my 308 into something in a 6mm for mostly target shooting. But it's a SIG cross rifle, so magazine and bolt head options are non-existent. I will be stuck with calibers with a 308 parent case. What would you suggest? Second, I have a lot of once-fired 308 brass. What is the best method for necking that down to 7mm 08? Are there step-down dies to gradually bring the neck in, or do you just drop a 7mm 08 full-length die on it and ram it home? Should I also incorporate an expander mandrel and go back and forth with the sizing die? Love your content. Thanks in advance. I wrote back to Justin right away and I said, hey, Justin, just lubricate those 308 Winchester cases, especially the necks, with Imperial case sizing wax, and then full-length resize in your 7mm 08 die. Trim the neck if necessary, and bingo, you've got your 7mm 08 cases. For your cross rebarrel, a 243 Winchester would be the easiest. It's just the 308 neck down, so you will need to step down to convert that 308 to a 243. I think you'll probably run them through a 7mm 08 die first, then you might be able to go right to the 243 die, but you might need a 260 Remington as an intermediate step. Imperial wax is so good that I'm thinking 7mm to 243 in one go just might work, so try it and see. All right, now Drew, another patron, asks this. Good evening, Ron. I have a question for you. I'm dabbling in writing short stories, and I'm curious if you can give me some insights into how to send them in. Can I send the story to more than one magazine at a time? How precise does my grammar have to be, or will they do some corrections? Would you be interested in reading it before I would send it in? Not to proofread necessarily or to fix it, but just to let me know if it'd be something that you think is good enough. I've been holding this story for 19 years, and to me, it's a good one. Wow. I don't know, Drew, hanging on to that story for 19 years, you're going to have to start sending it around. So here's what I wrote back to Drew. Drew, first, know your audience. In this case, the editor of your favorite magazine to which you want to submit your story. Then research that magazine to determine how and where to submit copy. There's likely an email address, and when I started freelancing, everything was paper and snail mail. Over the transom submissions were double-spaced, the first page starting with a title centered halfway down the first page, each page numbered, etc. There were lots of precise rules per each editor's preferences. I'm not sure what they want these days, so check their sites. Do you send to more than one at a time? No. What if both accept it? You'll tick one of them off by rescinding your offer. So I would start with the highest paying first. The more precise your grammar and syntax, obviously, the better your chances. But an intriguing and enticing opening sentence really helps. And then a fascinating story well told should seal the deal. If they like the story, they'll fix the grammar. Now, given my schedule and workload, I don't have time to do your story justice. Besides, any 10 editors might like what I don't and vice versa, so trust your own voice. Do your best and send it in. Good luck. And 4 days later, Drew writes back, hey, Ron, I sent it in. I got a response. I was told I will consider it for publication. So I'm assuming that is better than it's not what we're looking for at the moment. I'll keep you updated, and thanks for the advice. Hey, that's great, Drew. Just that quickly it can happen, guys. If you think you've got a great story and you'd like to see it in a magazine, do what I did way back in 1975 or 6. Write those stories and send them in. And you might be like Drew and me, and bingo, get a hit right off the bat, and that might start you on a new career. Pretty cool. All right, let's see what patron Chad has to say. Hello, Ron. Chad here from Kansas. I have a question on point of impact shifting between two different bench rests I use while shooting my rifle. I have two different gun ranges that I go to here in Kansas, and depending on which way the wind is blowing. On one, I get to shoot facing to the south, and the other one faces north. I like to shoot downwind where it seems it makes it easier to keep the crosshairs centered and I don't have to worry about bullet deflection while sighting in my rifles. That is true, and it's a good point. Well done. I use the exact same technique on both benches, and I shoot off the same sandbags, one under the forearm and another under the buttstock. The single difference is one of the benches is much lower than the other. With the lower bench, I am hunched over while taking a shot. From this shooting bench, all of my rifles, which are bolt actions in .243, .270, and .22-250. They all seem to shoot about an inch higher than the other bench when I'm not crouched down and bent over as much. My groupings all seem to stay to the same left and right. They just hit a bit higher. I've been shooting at both gun ranges for more than 2 years, so I have a fairly good sample size. Do you ever see point of impact changes when shooting from different benches, even though all other factors remain the same? Thanks as always, and best luck with the upcoming season, Chad. Well, Chad, good luck to you with the upcoming season, even if you are shooting an inch higher. But here's what I wrote back to Chad. I said, hey, that's interesting, Chad. Two factors could be at play. First, there could be a parallax in your scope. So with the different head and eye position from crouching down more, this could be directing your hits higher. Number two, the different head positions between your benches and or the positions of the butt on your shoulder could be altering your shots. For example, with a higher head and a different facial position on the comb, your rifle could be sliding back more freely on that low bench setup. You might build a box to set atop the lower bench and then put your bags atop it to see if that brings your zero into compliance. Additionally, the angle of the light from south to north could be subtly changing your sight picture. It's sort of a mirage effect. Open sight shooters have a saying, lights up, sights up, Lights down, sights down. This means one must compensate for the perceived target picture under different lighting conditions. A target in bright light leads most to hit lower so that they aim a little bit higher. I don't know if this applies to scopes, but the mirage idea is worth investigating. As a hunter, I wouldn't freak out about this too much because targets and lighting appear and change subtly and often dramatically. But if you want to figure it out, try those two things. All right, that was a good one. Boy, that's the first time I've heard of that one, other than the lights up, sights up deal I heard years ago. All right, Roy Tall. I will admit a 300 is all I use now, but I used to carry an .6. I assume he means a 30-06 before, and at a fair distance, the speed of it seems to make it not just hit, but slam. Maybe the bullet weight and the slower speed does it. Good combination, but at greater distances, the 300 Winchester Magnum rules. Well, see, that's interesting, Roy Tall. And I hear this quite a bit, but it just doesn't make sense when you consider the laws of physics. Mass of an object and velocity create energy. So the heavier bullet, the more it's going to hit, the more energy it's going to apply to the target. The faster that bullet is moving, the harder it hits and the more energy it applies to the target. And you can figure this out pretty simply by standing on a sidewalk barefooted and just dropping a bullet from about a foot above your toe right onto it, and then another bullet from about head high right onto it. Which one is going to hurt more? Basic, simple process. It's just the faster bullet of the same weight is going to hit harder and put more energy onto the target. I don't know why some people think something else is going on here, but at greater distances, the 300 rules, well, yeah, with the same bullet, it's going to retain more energy when it gets there. But at closer ranges, there's no reason why a 30-06 should hit harder with the same bullet than the 300 Win Mag, because the Win Mag is going faster. Now, it might be that the construction of the bullet is not working out well at those impact velocities. A lighter framed bullet, more of a cup and core bullet, those can break up more easily, not retain weight in one projectile, but break it up into little pieces and not penetrate as deeply. That could be an effect that you're seeing. A lot of strange things happen when it's time for that bullet to land, but don't blame it on a heavy bullet moving slowly being more effective or carrying more energy, because it just doesn't. Well, let's see what else we've got here.
Are those from YouTube?
Pardon?
Are those comments from YouTube or from?
Yeah, those are YouTube. I'm not sure which this one was from. I saw it and I thought it'd be a good one to comment on this energy idea, because you so often hear people say that a low velocity heavy bullet is going to hit harder than a faster bullet. You know, at some point you've got a balance there. You say you've got a 40 grain 22 caliber bullet going 4,000 feet per second. That's not going to hit as hard as a 500 grain bullet from something like a 458 or a 4570 that's only going 1,000 feet per second. You can figure out the math on this stuff, and that's what ballistic calculators do. And again, there's just so much we can learn from these ballistic calculators. So get online, just type in free ballistic calculator and find one that gives you things like the recoil energy factor and the bullet impact energy and all that good stuff, and you'll start to understand how all this stuff works. Royal Tall did get one reply from someone who said, hey, slower does not equal harder. That sums it up nicely. All right. Oh, here's somebody commenting on the 3-rifle battery. We got a lot of good comments on that. A lot of folks picking 22 rimfire, which I like, and then 308, 30-06 kind of in the middle, and then a 375 H&H or a 458 Win Mag or something at the upper end. But here's someone from Germany saying, over here in Europe, it's the 7x64, the 308, and the 8x57 IS. So there you go. Different perspective from a different part of the world, because those are more common rifles and cartridges over there. Oh, here's a good one from my buddy Ron. This guy, this is the gentleman who took me on my first Snake River giant sturgeon fishing trip. This guy is Mr. Sturgeon. He eats, breathes, talks, and he's the sturgeon whisperer. He really understands these prehistoric giant fish, and I'm talking giant. He took me to a secret spot. Did everything I had to. I didn't have to do anything but go along and follow directions. It was really remarkable. And within, I don't know, an hour, I hooked my first fish and landed about a 3-foot sturgeon. And I got a couple more like that. And then we were getting late in the day. We were about to pull out. And he sets the hook into something big. And he says, Ron, you need to fight this fish. Even though I hooked it, you probably want to fight it. So I took that rod and, oh my gosh, did we have a fish fight on our hands. Holy mackerel. And he told me everything that was going to happen. He says, it's going to jump. And pretty soon it came out of the water like a Poseidon missile. And it was huge. We just both gasped and whooped. Oh my gosh. And we were in float tubes, guys. We weren't in some big boat. This thing was towing me all around that deep hole. Holy mackerel. So after a long battle, I don't know, we were maybe 25 minutes into it. Bubbles came up, and he said, good sign. He's wearing out now. I said, what do you mean? Well, what are the bubbles? He said, he's blowing the air out of his air bladder so he stays on the bottom. Makes it easier for him to fight the tension on the line. But he's wearing out, so this is a good sign. Now, he'll probably come up one more time to try to jump. And he came up, and all he could get out of the water was his head. But it was probably this wide, and I'm holding my hands apart a good foot to 16 inches. I don't know. It's just the impression of it. No more than 10 yards in front of me coming out of that water was like, oh. And even Ron said, whoa, that's an 8-footer. That's a monster. Now he's done for. He's done. All you have to do now is drag him into shore. We'll take some pictures. You can't take these things out of the water because that thing is going to measure 8 feet. And just about that time, I felt the hook slide right out of it. Gone. But oh, what an adventure. And I'm due to go back for a rematch. But this is not about fishing. This is about pack goat hunting. We recently read from somebody who said, I heard you can use goats to pack out your elk. Take them back in the backcountry. They're better than horses. They're not as big. They're easier to manage, and they eat the foliage. You don't have to bring food in for them. Pretty cool. And I asked, has anybody out there ever done this? Well, here's my sturgeon fishing buddy saying, yeah, I've had pack goats. Ron, I used to do this 30 years ago. I built my own saddles, and I had my bags and pads made by a saddle maker. I packed out 6 bull elk with my goats. 2 of them were 6-point bulls. In the pictures I've included are with a spike bull. One of my goats started scrubbing his horns on a tree. I was actually deer hunting in the Little Lost River area when that spike hunt was going on, and this bull came to the goat, and I caught him with my .243 Winchester at 40 yards. So the goat not only packed out his supplies, but it called in the elk by rubbing a tree. That is amazing. So the picture of the book, there was a book in his pictures. He got a picture of his goats on the cover of some book about how to use pack goats. He says the picture on that book is my goat Rex. I helped to write the hunting chapter of that book, and I have several pictures in it. My big white goats would easily carry 75 pounds coming out downhill. My small goats would each carry a boned-out quarter of a spike or a cow elk. I hunted with them for about 14 years. They got old, and at the time, I didn't own land, so I just rented pastures. The dark-colored one with the big horns was my goat that I hunted ducks with. Ducks! I would load a half-dozen decoys, my waders, and other hunting stuff onto him, and then I would hike down into this canyon, and I would shoot a limit of ducks, and he would carry everything out. My Springer Spaniel did the retrieving. One time we were hunting the spike-only hunt for elk in the Little Lost River drainage, and a huge herd of wintering elk were on a bare hillside. My buddy John and I took a goat in each hand, and we walked beside the goats right into the herd and killed 2 spikes. Now they're working for decoys, and they're calling elk, and you're hiding behind them. I'm going to get some goats. We hunted that spike hunt many times, and we took many bulls every time with the goats. Here are some of my pictures. I wish I could show you guys these pictures, but the gist of it is pack goats seem to be pretty darned effective for backcountry hunting, especially for elk. I don't know if they can call mule deer, but that might work too. All right, let's hear from some more folks who just commented on our various videos. Tony300. A day ago on Killing the Energy Myth is what he's responding to here. Great article, Ron. As already stated by several, enough energy to penetrate and damage the organs is vital. Vital organs. Good little joke there. Another variable in the formula of why the bullet kills and the butt of the rifle doesn't kill is its area of impact. It takes a lot more energy to push a bowling pin through a deer than it does to push a needle through it. I know what Tony is saying here. He's answering that question that often pops up about if a rifle has opposite and equal reactions, which is a Newtonian law of physics. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So if your bullet's flying out of the barrel, the recoil of the rifle against your shoulder is the equivalent energy. And if the energy of the bullet kills the elk, why doesn't the butt of the rifle kill you? Well, it's because the bullet is penetrating more easily because it's much, much smaller. But it's really killing because it is disrupting the tissue. It's causing hemorrhaging, whereas the butt of the rifle isn't. If the butt of your rifle was the size of that bullet, the point, it would punch into your shoulder and do some significant damage. But the point I want to make is neither one of them is knocking either of you over. Even though you're not getting physical damage from the butt of the rifle in your shoulder, you are getting the full energy of that bullet when it emerges from the muzzle. So if that bullet's carrying 3,000 foot-pounds of energy, you are getting 3,000 foot-pounds of energy on your shoulder, except the weight of your rifle negates some of that, quite a bit of it actually. But regardless, it doesn't knock you over. So why would you expect a bullet to knock over a 700-pound elk or even a 250-pound deer? That's the thing you need to consider. So many people will say, oh, this big heavy magnum of mine, I hit that elk and I flipped him clear over, or I hit a deer and I knocked him 10 feet backwards. And that stuff just does not happen. That is not how energy is transferred from the bullet to your target or from your buttstock to your shoulder. I've talked about this a lot, and I will continue to, but there's always folks scratching their heads over this one, as I did when I was learning it years and years ago. How does all this stuff really work? So you really have to study it a lot, but just know that energy is not what kills your game. If the energy was what did it when we shot something massive like, say, a 500 Nitro Express or a 470 Nitro or a 458 lot, we would do considerable damage to ourselves because we are absorbing that energy, minus, as I said, the weight of the rifle. Okay, now let's see what else. Tony, thanks for that. Appreciate the opportunity to embellish what we know about the energy-killing myth. Kelvin, 3 days ago, he responded to something about why I am not buying a 6mm Creedmoor. Oh, that was an old piece I did. I remember if that was a blog on my website, ronspomeroutdoors.com, or if that was a YouTube. But it was several years ago when they first came out with that 6mm Creedmoor. At any rate, Cal says this. Ron, one note that you missed is that most of the long-range prairie dog shooters prefer the 6mm Remington to the 243 because the barrels last much longer. I believe it's because the shorter neck puts the burning gases closer to the lands, but most of these guys couldn't care less about why. They know from experience that the 6mm Remington just lasts a lot longer before throat erosion. I built two AR-10s in 6.5 Creedmoor, and I love them, and a 6mm Creedmoor is next on my list. Can't say why, because my 6.5 is performing great, but it's still on my list. Well, I can understand that, Cal, and matter of fact, I think a 6mm Creedmoor is actually on my list now, too. I've got 243s and 6mm, but this 6mm Creedmoor, I don't know, I shot it down in Texas, off the bench out to 1,200 yards. And it was shooting sub-MOA. It was shooting half MOA. Sometimes it was shooting almost quarter MOA at 1,200 yards. This was with the Stealth Vision system. It's a superior scope. And the rifle, I believe, was a Seekins Precision Action with a carbon fiber. No, I think it was a standard barrel. But at any rate, it had all been tuned up by Joe Cunningham, worked up with the great loads, and just shot like a house afire. And I was so impressed, I thought, I just might pick one of those up. It would make a great long-range clanger for steel targets. At any rate, what I was going to say about that 6mm Remington and the 243, I had personally not heard about the 6mm burning your barrels out more slowly than the 243 Winchester. And I kind of wondered at first because there's a little more powder in the 6mm. Why wouldn't it burn it out faster? But, as you suggested, the neck of the case. When you look at the shoulder slopes of the 243 versus the 6mm, the 6mm has a 26 degree and I think the 243 is 20. The upshot is that the wall of that sloped shoulder directs the flame against the interior neck. Once that bullet leaves, most of that flame is hitting against the case, the brass case, rather than the barrel itself, the throat. With the 243 and that slopier angle, it's blowing it right out into the lead and the throat, and you're rifling. So you are probably going to get more flame temperature and friction from the unburnt powder. Because remember, when you go bang, all your powder is not instantly consumed. A bunch of it is going down the barrel and burning as it travels, and it can act roughly like sandpaper. So you're sort of sand blasting the first inch or two of your barrel, and that's where barrel breakdown comes into play. Cool. Great. Thanks for bringing that up, Cal. Now, here is a little list that I compiled. This is not cast in stone. It's not absolute, but I just looked over all the different comments folks sent in about their favorite deer rifles and what cartridges are popular in their areas. What do you mostly see when you're out hunting? And here's how things came down. Top of the heap, 30-06. Next in line, 308 Winchester. And then 270 Winchester. 243 Winchester, 30-30 Winchester, 7mm Remington Magnum, 223. Then there weren't a lot of cartridges that got heaps and heaps of attention, but there were a great variety mentioned. So I want to just read through those and see if you might have one of them, or if you want to throw one of yours in that you do not hear. But after the 7 Rem Mag and the 223, then we got some 22 250s, 300 Winchester Magnums, 35 Remington was still in there quite often. 6.5 by 55 in Sweden. Heard from several folks from Sweden, and they like that one over there. The 12-gauge shotgun, slugs, that popped up a lot. 45-70, 6.5 Creedmoor. That replaced the 243 Winchester in some areas. The 350 Legend, obviously, that's in the straight wall states. 338 Win Mag, that one really surprised me. I didn't figure a lot of people would be working with a 338 Winchester Magnum for deer hunting. But then the 7mm 08, that surprises me because I have long thought that the 708 is just about the optimum whitetail cartridge. Short action like the 308, a little more efficient bullets, get a little more energy on target at distance, shoots a little bit flatter, but boy, that should be a really popular one. It seems I'm hearing a lot more people talk about it, but it's still not real high on the list. And I think part of the reason is it didn't appear until 1980, whereas the 30-06, the 308, the 270, the 243, those go back into the 1950s and earlier. Betsy's waving her hand.
Yes. Would you remind the audience what you're talking about?
I am talking about the most popular deer hunting cartridges from around the world, really.
How did you ask them that question?
Yes. I asked the question on either a podcast or one of my regular shows, what you guys were seeing most commonly for deer hunting in your area. Because one of our fans wrote in and said he worked at a gun shop, and he is not seeing large sales of all these new PRC cartridges and all the long bullets and everything. Pretty much people come in asking for the 30-06, 308, 270, maybe the 7 Rem Mag. So I thought, well, what is popular in your area? And these are what came back. So 30-06, 308, 270, 243, 30-30, and then 7 Rem Mag. Those kind of were the top 6. So I saw those popping up more than anything else. But then we got this long list of other ones. And, in addition to the 708, we had the 25-06, 45 Colt. That one surprised me. The 303 British, and that's mostly from Canadians because those were really popular and common up there. And something really surprising was the 41 Great Lakes. The 41 Great Lakes, what is that? This is a Wildcat cartridge that's getting quite a bit of attention and a lot of fans in the Great Lakes states. Michigan, I think, is where it started. It's a straight wall. And guys are always looking for better performance in a straight wall, and this one seems to have it. Now, I've got a few of these cartridges that I could do something on, but I'm supposed to be getting a rifle with which to test them. So if that ever comes in, we will do some investigation on that 41 Great Lakes and just find out what it's all about. And then the final two that I saw was the 7mm SAUM, the SAUM Remington cartridge, and the 300 Blackout popped up. So Again, you guys are welcome to write in and tell me what's popular in your area, but I'm guessing it's not going to change much. It's just pretty hard after, well, from 1906 until now with the 30-06, and then 1952 with the 308 Winchester, 1925, I believe, with the 270. And the 243 is 1955. The 3030 is 1894. Those cartridges have had a lot of time in which to become popular. And that's probably why they are the most popular with most of you. All right, let's see what the team has pulled up here as a big surprise for Grandpa Ron. If he can figure out how to turn this thing on, and he can't. Okay, all right. What do we do? We wait for Betsy to come back so she can tell us how the hell to get her computer to open up and show me what I'm supposed to see. All right. We're hearing from Kayleen. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he writes quite often. I always enjoy hearing from him because he's from bonny old Scotland. And he says it right here. He says, from the bonny shores of Scotland. Hi, Ron. As always, we love your podcast. Your wisdom and advice are always sought after, and thankfully it's still coming, so keep it up. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I know you are a great fan of the 757 Mauser. Me, not so much. That is, until I put some thought into the history and origins of the 757, its parent cartridge and many of its offspring. I thought so hard about it that I ended up heading into my shop and I took apart one of my Remington Rolling Block 30-06 rifles. The venerable .6 is my second favorite cartridge. My number one is the versatile 458 Win Mag for larger game. As I am not as well versed in the 757 Mauser, I will seek your advice. This will be a hunting rifle I'm building. I seek a 1 minute of angle at 300 yards or meters, or maybe a little more. Barrel length, 24 inches, give or take. Medium to heavy profile. Precision iron sights as well as a scope. Low to medium power scope. I want to hunt deer, elk, maybe moose. I may use mono metal bullets. What do you recommend for barrel length, rate of twist, a heavy bullet, and a barrel maker? I do have some ideas, but I do recognize I'm not as familiar with the 757 Mauser as you are. I'm only looking for information. I'm not expecting you to have all the definitive answers, just guidance in the right direction. I want to burn all the powder in the barrel. I hope to build a beautiful rifle to rival your Park West Arms SD10, as it is amazing to look at. Galen, okay. I appreciate that, and you will not get a definitive answer, but I'll give you some ideas here. You know, the 757 Mauser, of course, is just famous. It's ancient. It's done it all. It was used for elephant quite successfully. It's a little bit weaker in power overall than the 30-06, but not a heck of a lot. You know, it's almost as short as the 308 or the 7mm 08, but not quite officially that short action. So you can run it in short action rifles, but you can't seat your long bullets out if that's the game you want to play. But it'll do just fine with 140, 150 grain bullets. And originally it was shooting 173 grain round nose bullets with the military. And if I remember right, Bell in Africa, Karamojo Bell, the elephant hunter, used military rounds, 173 grains, and he averaged 1.5 shots for every one of the elephants he took with that rifle, and he took 800 of them. Took several hundred more with different cartridges that he tried, but that was his primary option. Obviously, this cartridge can do it for elk and moose and even bears and different things. You're going to be pushing 150 grain bullets around 2,800 feet per second. 27, 28, somewhere in there. The bigger, heavier ones are going to go more slowly. So it's not a super long range necessarily, a rig. But for what you're talking about, 300 right now, in mine, I am working on some bullets that are giving me pretty much point blank range on a deer side target. That's a 6-inch diameter target. I can keep it in there out to about 300 yards with 132 grain hammer hunter bullets. That's an all copper bullet. And I have no doubt that copper bullet is going to penetrate deeply and be able to take not just mule deer and whitetail and pronghorn and sheep, but elk with the right shot placement. But if I want more bullet mass, I can always go to a 160 or 162. And I don't think I'll ever really bother with 175s. They're going to be going much more slowly, And I like to have a little bit flat trajectory, a little more reach. And for most of the game I hunt these days, that's plenty. So I think that's what you're going to be shooting for. I do like your 24-inch barrel idea. If you're shooting open country, why not? The only reason I would go shorter is for carry convenience, maneuvering through heavy brush and whatnot. Heavy profile, that's up to you. I don't generally go with heavy profile. Medium is about as heavy as I go on my barrels because I found that lightweight rifles with a good quality barrel will shoot precisely for 3 shots at least before they get too hot. And with a single shot, you're going to be shooting a little more slowly and probably not more than twice because you're going to take your time to make that first shot count, and then you might need a finisher. So whether that thing will shoot 10 shots before it gets too hot is really not a concern. But suit yourself on that. And scope, yeah, low to medium power scope, I'm with you right there. I've been working with I think it's a 3 to 10, 42 millimeter Swarovski, which is I've used that scope on a lot of different rifles. It's a great setup. But on this one, it doesn't seem to have enough eye relief because of the way the rifle's built and how the scope sits out front. I can't pull it back quite far enough to get a good quick sight picture without having to creep up on that. So I may be switching scopes. And the one that gives me the most eye relief seems to be loopholed. Variax 3 2.5 to 8 by 36. I've used that on a lot of rifles over the year, and I find that it's more than adequate out to 300, 400 yards even. So I would tell you to take a pretty hard look at that. That might be the scope you want to work with. Or any other brands that are in that same area that have that eye relief. You might not need as much eye relief as I do, but I always like 4 inches or a little bit more if I can get it. Now, barrel makers, gosh, there are so many great barrel makers out there. And you're over in Scotland. I don't know what you have there. I doubt you can order a barrel from the States and get it, but I don't know, maybe you can. But there are just so many great barrel manufacturers that I think you just need to research good quality one and go with it. What else can I tell you here? Twist rate, yeah, I would up your twist rate a little bit. You know, the standards, 1 in 10, 1 in 9. You might want to go with 1 in 8.5 or even 1 in 8 if you want to shoot those really high BC long bullets. Again, I'm going to be settling for the 150 grain, maybe 162. Use a copper bullet, though, and a 162 is getting about as long as the traditional 175. So having a little more twist is probably going to help you out. Now, my Park West Arms 10 is shooting pretty consistently at 1 MOA with my latest hand loads, but I'm still tweaking that stuff, especially the seating depth. But I expect to be able to consistently shoot sub-MOA with those. So the twist rate, even though I've got a 1 in 8 twist, it's not hurting my lighter bullets at all. All right, so let me know how that goes and send me some pictures when you're done. It'd be really interesting to see a Remington rolling block in the 757 after you've tweaked it. Good job. All right, Kevin Long in California. Ron, love your YouTube channel. I currently own 2 .308 Winchester bolt-action rifles, a .22 long rifle, and a few .223 semi-autos. I'm wanting a new bolt-action rifle, and I want to diversify my calibers a bit. I'm not sure which to choose. Part of me wants a .223 bolt-action since I already have the ammo. Part of me wants something that I can shoot a little bit farther or maybe hit harder than the .308. I'd like to stay in easy-to-find calibers. Would a 30-06 be too close to what a .308 can do? I'm also considering a 7mm of some sort. What would you do? I would agree that your 30-06 and .308 are just too close. You know, you're going to have the same performance with them. You might get 100 feet per second more out of the 30-06. So since you've got a good .308, why not go to a 6.5 or a 7mm? Unless you need something bigger. If you're thinking of going to Africa or moose hunting, elk hunting, some of the really big stuff, and you want to play around with a 338 or a 35 of some kind, or even a 375, you could try that. But if you're concerned about bullet weight and cost and powder and all the rest of it, you probably don't want a bigger Magnum like that. You just want deer cartridges and such. I think from your .22 long rifle, that handles all your practice and your small game. You jump up to the .308, and you really are good for everything. But if you want a little more flat trajectory, less wind deflection, you're going to want a fast 6.5 or 7mm. And the 7 mag to me is always a great option. I think it's just the easiest one to roll with. But Some of the new 6.5s are really nice too. So I would look in both of those. And you can't go wrong with a 270 either. I mean, that good old 270, easy to find ammunition of all kinds, and it's going to do really well for you. Good luck, man. You got lots of choices. I've been through this many, many times. It's like, darn, what should I get next? What a problem to have. Welcome to America. All right, Richard from Indiana. I love your show, Ron, and I watch every one of them. Well, thank you, Richard. I really appreciate that. I have heard you often say that you love light rifles to carry up the mountain. My question is, if you have a training program to stay in shape to go up the mountain, are you hiking with weight in a pack, running, lifting weights? Keep up the good work, Richard. Well, Richard, I can tell you my training program is not very good. I just work on a ranch, and every once in a while I'll lift a few weights and maybe jog down the driveway for a short distance, but I never maintain a good program. And it is my fault. But when I was younger and more aggressive and doing these serious, and we're talking 17 miles into the backcountry, that kind of backpacking work, my most successful exercise was the heavy pack. I would start with, say, a 35-pound pack, and I would climb steep hills, easy to do in Idaho. And I would push it harder and harder and farther and farther. And then every week I'd add 5 or 10 pounds more until I got up around 50 or 60 pounds. If you work out with a pack, simply hiking like you will when you're out hunting and making some steep climbs because you're going to face the mountains, you are developing the right muscles, getting in shape for that kind of activity. It doesn't hurt to run and lift weights and all the rest of it. You just want good all over cardiovascular health and good strength everywhere. That always helps. But boy, putting on that backpack and going, that's what really makes the difference. And I was keeping up with the young bucks when I was in my late 50s, and they were in like 2021, and they would sort of step on the gas to see if the old guy could keep up. I was keeping up to my satisfaction and their surprise. So if you stay in shape and maintain that, you're going to have a long hunting career in the backcountry. What do you think, Betsy?
I think moving rocks out of a field and cutting trees and logs.
Yeah, that's true too. You get a big chainsaw in your hand, you start sawing up trees for 4 cords of firewood and then splitting the bigger rounds. That gets you in shape. And then picking rocks off the field. That's not something we do all the time, but we are rehabilitating our CRP fields to make them better habitat for wildlife. They were in a foreign grass, brome grass mostly, that just has limited value for wildlife. So we got together with the federal agencies and the Farm Bureau stuff and Fish and Game here in Idaho that has some great programs for helping out with planting grasses and forbs and such that benefit wildlife, especially the pollinators, the bees and the butterflies and all that stuff. But then that brings in feed for sharp-tailed grouse and pheasants and huns and all the upland birds, as well as the meadowlarks and the sparrows that nest out there and all the rest of it. So we are pretty excited about that. But to help out for dragging a disc and a harrow and the cedar and all that stuff over those fields and running into big rocks makes it a lot easier on the equipment to get the rocks out of the way first. So while our neighbor with the tractor was doing the disking work, Betsy and I tried to get those fields cleared off ahead of time by hauling out the rocks. And, you know, there are rocks, and then there are rocks, and then there are boulders. And of course, Grandpa Ron had to see how heavy of a boulder he could lift, and he pushed the envelope too much, and he knew it was stupid, and he was probably going to tweak his back. But he was able to lift some pretty sizable rocks, barely, and get him in the back of the Polaris Ranger to haul off. And of course, Nana Betsy decided she needed to match him, which of course she couldn't do, but by golly, she was hoisting some pretty significant boulders. And this is after having had shoulder surgery. I said, woman, don't do that. But she's as stubborn as I am. So that's how we're keeping in shape this fall. All right, let's see. I think we have Steve from Flowery Branch. I don't know where Flowery Branch is, but it sounds pretty blossomy. Ron, please do a video on the basic necessities for an adult, I'm 58, who wants to get into hunting on a working Joe's income. If I read articles and listen to podcasts and watch a bunch of videos, it seems like I've got to spend $1,600 on a rifle $600 on a scope, at least $300 on ammo to see which load my rifle likes best, another $300 on ammo so I can practice with that rifle and have at least a few rounds left over for the actual hunt, a couple of grand on a 15x Zeiss bino for a day or two of scouting, another $1,200 for an 8x rangefinding bino, $460 for a pair of Kenetric boots, $750 for a hunting specific clothing from skivvies to outer layer, $260 for a good pack. Oh, and if I want to hand load, I'll need another $1,000 for a single stage press kit, including all the accessories and components. I ran the numbers and I came up, including shipping and sales tax, with $7,691 for a complete hunting kit, or $8,467 if I want to hand load. And then I probably need to spend a few grand on travel and tuition for an on-site week-long hunting course in Montana, Idaho, or Utah. If I thought I really needed all that, I wouldn't give it another thought. Hunting in the whitetail woods would remain a fantasy lived vicariously through you and others' videos. Seriously, Ron, what's the minimum kit and cost for an average Joe on a near medium income with other bills and priorities that still have to be met to have a decent rifle system, ammo, including a reasonable practice, clothes and gear necessary, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Steve, that was pretty clever. I like that. And that is a ridiculous price up front, but I can see where you could easily spend it. But of course, you don't have to. You can find good rifles for as little as $300. It's amazing these days how inexpensively you can find a rifle that shoots remarkably well. So you can get, I would recommend, a magazine-fed bolt-action rifle from Mossberg and Savage and the XPR Winchester and the Browning ABL3, I think it is, ABLR3 or something. Even Sauer has an inexpensive rifle from Germany. Betsy.
Let's do a video on budget rifles.
Okay, you do the research, honey. I'll do the video. But you can do your own research because almost every manufacturer, offers a starter rifle. And if you go with a break action single shot, I don't know what you can get those for, probably $200. And then with scopes, same thing. Some time ago, we did that infamous $30 scope video. We went on YouTube to the Amazon site and looked for the cheapest scope we could find. And there was a 3-9 by 40 variable for $30. And I figured, well, this is going to be a piece of plastic nonsense, and ordered the darn thing just to make fun of it. Turned out it worked. And it worked consistently and well, even on a 375 H&H Magnum. Now, I didn't like it because it was Chinese made, but then so many things these days are made in China, and even if they're not, parts of them probably are imported from China, and that's just the way the world works now. But the point is, you can get a pretty darn effective scope for $30. And if you want to buy from American manufacturers, there are a lot of them that will sell you a $150 scope. It's probably the same as that $30 one with a different name on it, but you might have a better guarantee or something like that. At any rate, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a good serviceable scope. And those 3-9 scopes like that don't look any different than the ones I was using for most of my career in the late 70s through the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s. They just work. And I was taking game out to 300, 400 yards regularly with them, no problems. So there's knocking your price down. And then what else did you have on here? Ammo, yeah, it's hard to beat the ammo prices. The best you can do is go with a common cartridge like the 308 Winchester. 223 I wouldn't recommend because it's just a little too light. Yeah, experts can use it, or if you're hunting in close, it'll work for deer. But if you ever want to go for elk and things, you don't want to be handicapped with a little cartridge like that. Whereas the 308, you can shoot light, fast bullets, you can shoot heavy, slow bullets, you can handle everything and anything. So there you're going to get less expensive ammo because so many people make it, and you can find inexpensive versions for practice, as well as the latest and greatest premium bullets for serious big game hunting, so you don't have to spend as much if you get something like that rather than a 300 Win Mag or one of the PRCs that has a premium price on it. And then boots and all the rest of it, yeah, It's nice to have those Kenetrek boots. I love them myself, use them all the time. But then again, I think about when I was a kid and I didn't have them. I somehow managed. I survived. I think you can look around if you understand how boots are made and what quality is that you're looking for. You can get some that are a lot less expensive than that. They probably won't last as long. But for deer hunting, I have friends who deer hunt in running shoes, sneakers. As long as you stay dry, what the heck? It's not like you have to technical climb up a mountain cliff. So yeah, you don't need that. And then all that fancy clothing, man, I love it. There's some great products out there that really keep you warm and dry under harsh conditions. But most of us go out for the day and hunt deer and come back home. Even if it's coming back to the tent or the cabin, it's not like you're going to be out there for 2 weeks living out of your backpack. So if you're not doing that kind of hunting, why spend that kind of money on these fancy clothes, designer hunting clothes? And I love them when I can get them, but you don't need them. Back when I was younger, started off buying surplus wool from the Army Navy surplus store for like a couple, $3 for some great wool pants that lasted forever. You can still find some of that stuff, but you can also go to some of these inexpensive, mall stores that specialize in leftovers and whatnot. I'll go through the racks in some of those, and I'll find shirts like these. And of course, this is cotton, which is fine for in the house and around the yard. But for going out in the snow and the rain and the cold, I don't want cotton. I want wool or some kind of a polyester. So you look for that. And the fashion clothes, they build them so that they look like what the kids might think is cool. So you might find one in camouflage that's made out of a good water-wicking fabric of some kind, possibly even wool, for not very much money. And I'm talking like $10 to $25 for a shirt, whereas you buy them from these fancy camouflage hunting clothes places that might cost you a couple $100. So there are easily ways to save money on that sort of stuff. Your reloading kit, look for a garage sale. Plenty of old guys that are getting out of reloading because they're getting out of life have got this stuff for sale. And it's heavy-duty equipment that lasts for a long, long, long time. You can probably find a heck of a deal on some used equipment. So shop around for that. But you can also buy new equipment and get the starter stuff. Several of these hand-loading companies sell really expensive advanced presses, but also some pretty simple ones. I think Lee is one of those that has some real inexpensive presses. So you can get into it for a lot less money than you're advertising here. Basically, that's it, man. Just do some basic research, shop around, use your head, and once you get over this idea that you have to buy all the latest and greatest buzz equipment, because it is the latest and greatest, but you don't need it, concentrate on a good rifle, a good scope, and learn to hunt. Most of hunting is getting out there, being relatively comfortable while you are, and seeing what you need to see. Hunt into the wind, look for game before you spook it, and you should be able to shoot it with a slingshot. Not that I ever have, but it's possible. Okay, Cody. Ron, I've listened to almost all your podcasts and watched most of your videos. Cody, you're my man. Have to say, you give great information, and if you are wrong or something, you quickly clarify it. But I do have a question about copper bullets. I know that copper bullets are tougher and they penetrate deeper with the best weight retention, but do you know of any difference in terminal performance between, let's say, a Nosler E-tip, a Hornady CX, and a Barnes TTSX? Is one tougher than another, or does it simply come down to what shoots in your gun and what you can find? Just simply asking this because my next hunting rifle is going to be a 300 Weatherby Magnum. I do reload. I love that cartridge and the history of Weatherby. I was originally thinking of going with a bonded bullet, but because the higher velocity and shorter distances I'll be shooting on elk and moose and possibly black bear, I wonder if I shouldn't consider the copper bullets or stick with a more traditional bonded bullet. I come from a saying of lead nose and down she goes. But what are your thoughts? Hey, Cody, I like what you're thinking about these all-copper bullets with that high-velocity cartridge. They are ideal for that because it drives so fast, traditional bullets are more likely to break up, whereas these coppers, man, they are going to fully expand and retain their weight and just penetrate. Shoot right through and get a good hemorrhaging of the vitals, and you're going to do just great with those. So whether or not the E-tip and the CX Hornady and the Barnes TTSX are better or less on terminal performance, you're probably going to have to determine on your own. I do know that the TTSX has it just about nailed. What it is the depth of the hollow in the nose that begins to open it up determines how much it opens up. You can have a shallow, hollow nose cavity or a deep one. Well, the deeper it is, the more expansion of that petal you're going to get. The petals open up pretty far with a deep channel. So look at those bullets and figure out how deep they get. Now, the previous Hornady bullet to the CX, the one just before that, did not have skived interior petals. Instead, it just sort of rolled back. And I found that while I took game with it, I never got the expansion that I got with the TTSX or the TSX or any of the Barnes bullets. The Nosler E-tip I found shot very accurately in some of my rifles, but I never took game with them, so I'm not sure how well they open. But all of these bullets are pretty much doing the same thing. How big is that hollow? How deep is the hollow? That's going to determine how much it opens. So check those out, and good luck with it. I think you're going to find out that the combination of the 300 Weatherby Magnum and those bullets are going to do you quite well. Now, Pennsylvania has Marvin, who says after a 3-year hiatus from hunting, medical problems. I grabbed my favorite Ruger No. 1 and 7 Rem Mag and my own custom reloads shooting 175 grain Nosler partitions. That's a good combo right there. At the 100-yard range, I was horrified at what was happening. First shot was right on target, but every shot after that rose a half inch to an inch straight up. After 5 shots, I was 4.5 inches above my first one. I checked my scope mounts, everything tight. Any info about this problem would be appreciated. Thanks. Marvin, I think you're probably seeing the fore-end stock impacting the barrel and driving your shots up as that barrel heats up and expands, touches the stock more. You're resting it on a hard surface perhaps, and it's driving your shots up. But I am not an expert on this particular rifle. There are many of those experts out there, and I would invite them to write in and explain what's possibly going on. I'm sure you guys have seen this kind of thing, and you've got the solutions. I know some of my friends with these will put a screw in the forend to variable pressure on the barrel from the stock to the barrel. Not exactly sure how that's done, but it seems to work pretty well for them. So you might want to try that. All right, Dusty, Wyoming. I would gladly take the 65-year young feller. I'm in Wyoming myself and hunt all the time. I'm 33 years old, a rancher, and thinks hunting is this. This is in reference to a gentleman in one of our previous shows who said he was 65, had never gone hunting and wants to, and wondered if somebody was out there who could kind of help him along. And I said, gosh, in Wyoming, where you're from, I would think somebody would be out there available to do this. And here he is, Dusty. The problem is, my wife is signaling in their background. We probably, for legal reasons, don't want to be hooking people up. So what I would recommend is that Dusty try to get a hold of this gentleman whose name now escapes me because it was some time ago when I did that. And or that gentleman might write in or try to find Dusty. I'm sorry, guys. I just don't feel comfortable giving your email addresses to one another. It could cause some problems. Who knows, in this day and age, crazy things happen. But I think the gist of it is, this is what I was saying about hunters. Most of us are willing to take someone under our wing or at least help them out. I've just found this over the years where it's just a great community. We understand and appreciate the opportunities we have to be able to hunt and enjoy the wilderness and the rugged outdoors of our country. And we are willing to share some of those experiences and some of that game and help others out. I think we all understand that the more hunters we have, the more political pressure we have, so we can retain our rights to hunt as well as our rights to own and use firearms and all the rest of it. So helpful folks out there, continue to do that. If you know of anybody who shows an interest in hunting, do your part. Bring them along, show them the ropes, help them out, help create good, responsible hunters so we can continue the sustained resource use that we've developed in this country and in many parts of Africa. That is the salvation of wildlife. Well, that looks like all of the questions and such for now. Betsy does want me to do a bit of an advertisement for soapstone hippos or rhinos from, no, that's not what she doesn't want me to do that. No, she wants me to mention that you can buy the 7mm book from Ron Spomer Outdoors.com or Amazon. $30 on Amazon. autographed copies for way too much money from Ron Spomer Outdoors. But if you're willing to spend your money, I'm willing to sign it. Same with the old Predator book. This thing is surprisingly selling well, despite its age. Came out in 2012. Still good, viable information in there. I just don't have all the modern cartridges. I detail all the good, suitable Predator cartridges from the 22 mag on up to the 270, but I'm missing a lot of the latest ones. But still, good information on how to call predators, how to set up, and all the rest of it. Hey, everybody, that is time for our comment of the week. Boy, those bells really ring. By the way, these are made by my buddy Doug, and he has me shoot the bases of them. He calls them freedom bells. He is a big Second Amendment proponent, and then he sells his freedom bells to let freedom ring. You can find those on our website as well as some galleries around the West. But we are signaling our comment of the week. And Betsy, who are we going to give it to? I am leaning towards Tony, who talked about the butt of the rifle not killing you like the bullet coming out of the other end does. I thought that was good stuff.
I like the guy from Scotland talking about the 757, the rifle that I spent some money on.
Kalen bringing up the 757. Yeah, I like that too. Who should we give it to? I love the fact that our Scottish friend has listened to me talk about the 757, decided to get one for himself after doing additional research, which I always recommend. Don't just take my word for it. I do like that. However, I think the information that we got from Tony bringing up this energy thing, I think is more valuable overall for shooters to understand. Sorry, honey, I'm going to overrule you on this one. So we're going to give it to Tony. Tony commented about you're not getting as much damage from the recoil of the rifle as the animal is getting from the bullet, because the bullet is much smaller, pointed, and it penetrates to do damage, whereas the butt of your rifle spreads out that energy so you don't kill yourself, which is roughly what's going on. But it helps us understand this energy business with bullets, because bullets do not kill by energy. Yes, you need enough energy for that bullet to reach the vitals and tear them and do damage. But it's not the energy that kills it. Otherwise, you would suffer pretty significantly from the same energy that's coming back at you as is going out the barrel, modified by the weight of the rifle a little bit, of course. So, yeah, I'm going to give it to that one. Tony, you're the winner. Comment of the week. So, once again, we thank everyone for jumping in here, sending all your comments in. You can comment on these videos. You can go to Ron Spomer Outdoors regular podcast on YouTube, comment on those videos. You can go to our website, ronspomeroutdoors.com, and there's a comment section in there. Where else can they comment, honey? You can find me on the street somewhere and comment. I get that quite a bit.
No, but we appreciate everybody commenting.
Yeah, we certainly
do.
do.
We wish we could read everybody's comments. But
we'd be here all week. We don't want to do that. Yeah. So, hey, thanks, everybody. Hey, we're coming up on hunting seasons big time right now. I mean, I've already got a blue grouse. Whoopie-dee, one big blue grouse. But I'm just working here on the ranch, and I haven't really gone on a hunt yet. But I'm about to start, and I trust a lot of you will be doing so as well. So good luck on all of your hunts. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. Hunt honest and shoot straight. We'll see you next time.